Hi, I'm attorney Gregory Dell, and today I'm joined by attorney Stephen Jessup.
Hey, Greg.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And today we want to discuss disability insurance claims dealing with carpal tunnel syndrome. Now, Steve and I and all of the lawyers in our firm have handled probably a couple hundred disability claims that involve someone who was disabled by carpal tunnel syndrome. And I would say that the majority of the claims that we deal with carpal tunnel fall into two types of occupation classes. Usually we have the people who work in front of computers for the most part of their day, and they're forced to use their hands and fingers obviously throughout the day, and due to that continuous repetitive use, they have the pain that's associated with carpal tunnel in their hands. The other class of claims for carpal tunnel syndrome that we usually represent is doctors who are forced to use their hands for fine motor skill activities. So I know, Steve, that recently you've represented multiple dentists, for example, and surgeons that have had to use they're forced to use their fingers in order to do their job in the fine motor skills. What kinds of challenges have you encountered from disability insurance companies regarding carpal tunnel being the basis for their disability claim?
Well, I think what it is that in a lot of ways, carpal tunnel treatment is usually a lot of conservative measures, wearing splinting, trying to not use the hand as much, sometimes medications involved. So it's not like there's really harsh treatment that's done for it. So the insurance companies kind of take a look at it. You can manage it with some adjustments here and there, as opposed to other conditions where you really can't. So I think the problem becomes is they just don't really give it the credibility it deserves with the severity, especially when you're thinking about, when you discuss with dentists and doctors, it's a constant static holding position where they're holding fine instruments, especially a dentist, in your mouth or something along those lines. And that can cause numbness in the hand, the increased pain, sensitivity, it fatigues easier. But insurance companies obviously are also always going to look to make sure that the diagnosis is confirmed. Because if you say, hey, my hand's tingling, it's burning, and hurts, well, you still have to back it up with some type of proof that that is, the basis of the problem.
Right, and I know, for example, a surgeon or a doctor, I certainly wouldn't want someone who has numb hands or pain in their hands operating or doing work in my mouth.
I think most people don't like going to the dentist to begin with, so
right.
Yeah.
I also find that the people who work in these desk jobs or on computers, the IT people, tons of IT people, especially in today's age where almost everything's computers, they're told for part of their treatment to wear wrist splints as needed. And then they find that they need to wear these wrist splints during the day, and that makes it extremely difficult for them to type. I've seen a lot of disability carriers who say, as a result of having to wear the wrist splints, there's no way you can do your job. I know that you've mentioned in the past that you've had some limited carpal tunnel syndrome symptoms yourself, but what about the fact that someone has some episodes, flare-ups, and then they go back to work? Does the condition seem to get re-aggravated by returning to the work environment that forces you to use your fingers a lot?
Well, the biggest thing is it's a repetitive use condition. It's from the repetitive use of it. So if you are not using it, the symptoms are going to alleviate because the swelling and the pressure is going to go down. But when you go back to using it full time again, especially if you're not taking any of the precautionary measures to try to help avoid it, it's going to flare back up. So you may even get periods where, like you said, you're fine, it's bad, you can't work, you go back, and most people's insurance policies have elimination periods that they have to meet. So you may not even be out long enough for it. So it's a back and forth trying to get back into work, and so I think that does make it a little difficult as well.
Right, and I usually see carpal tunnel as kind of one of several type of conditions that a person's having. They could have carpal tunnel and neck pain, carpal tunnel and shoulder problems, carpal tunnel and fibromyalgia, a whole variety of things. All right, the one other topic I want to discuss is there's been suggestions, and obviously in the medical literature it's controversial, over EMG nerve conduction study testing regarding carpal tunnel. Are claimants required to undergo EMG testing in order to prove that they have carpal tunnel syndrome?
I don't know if there's a definitive answer for that. I think some policies, especially dentists with the Great West policy, we know for a fact that's what they want. They want EMG and nerve conduction studies done. We've spoken to neurologists, hand surgeons that say, listen, a lot of times it won't show up. It's not the only way to diagnose it, but because insurance companies are always looking for the subjective medical evidence of the condition, they say, well, just go ahead and have the EMG and nerve conduction studies, and it should document it. You could undergo it, it could show nothing, but you still have the problems. The surgeon says, well, let's go ahead with the surgery, and they'll see, clear as day that there's scarring and there's problems. So I don't think there's really a definitive answer for that.
And I know that you and I recently retained a neurologist who did a full research for us on EMG testing, and the results came back that there's no golden rule, no standard necessarily that EMG testing proves carpal tunnel. So I'm not suggesting that someone shouldn't undergo the EMG testing, just that people need to be aware that the EMG testing is not necessarily going to prove that you have carpal tunnel. And also there is that potential that it could do further damage to you because it is an invasive test. So if you have a claim that's related to carpal tunnel syndrome, feel free to give us a call. No matter what stage your disability claim is at, we're happy to review the claim and let you know if there's a way that we could assist you.